What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best builds in POE Exile's 2 new update, the Rise of the Abyssal. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on, then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it, and then finally we will go over the passive tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. And remember, if you want to check these builds, look up the best items, the skill trees, and part of building, then check my links in the description. And before we continue, thanks to Top Up Live, they are a pro website that provides POE2 services like cheap currency, and not only for this game, but many more at extremely cheap prices and much more. They also have hundreds of positive comments on Trustpilot, and this website is really worth a try. So make sure to use my discount code KATE for extra 12% off. And on top of it, you can sign up and get even more discount coupons that can go up to $80 for free, as well as Top Up Live will offer cheap gift cards, CD keys, and so much more. So this is truly the all-in-one shop for your gaming needs. This setup is not just about the raw power, but about transforming the fireball into something that feels entirely new, thanks to the infusion system and the Black Flame Covenant Keystone. The idea of turning the basic flame into a purple one that scales with both ignite and chaos mechanics makes this build one of the most unique spellcasters in the game. At its core, the build revolves around the Fireball, which is a skill that has existed since the very beginning of POE Exile, but Fireball has changed dramatically in the 0.3 by becoming a spell that interacts with the new infusion mechanic. Infusions are temporarily elemental ground effects generated by certain spells, and when you consume a fire infusion with the Fireball, your next cast will explode into multiple secondary projectiles. So now suddenly, the Fireball no longer feels like a slow single orb, but more like a miniature of the Storm Bolts, by spreading across the screen and multiplying your damage in every direction. Not only does your flame now appear purple, but they also ignite as chaos, meaning that your damage over time comes from a completely different scaling. This allows you to stack chaos multipliers, ignite duration and damage over time, in ways that the basic fireball build would not achieve. The Blood Mage Ascendancy will tie everything together by changing the way that you pay for spells. Instead of mana, every cast will cost life. At first, that might sound dangerous, but the passive tree and the gear are designed to make it feel smooth. Your life pool is massive, your regeneration and the leech are consistent, and your spells will actually help you to sustain by returning the health with every cast. So let's take a look at the build, and the first thing is the skill gems. The Fireball is our centerpiece, but it only becomes the monster we want when it interacts with infusions. The infusion mechanic means that you need to support spells that constantly feed your Fireball with the charges of power. The Living Bomb is one of the most important ones, because it generates fire infusions instantly. By casting it twice before firing the Fireball, you guarantee that all the Fireballs will be infused and you will unleash secondary projectiles. Then the Solar Orb and the Snap will add extra consistency. The Solar Orb provides a sustained zone that constantly refreshes your infusions, while the Snap gives you an on-demand generation when you need so less most, by turning routine casts into devastating detonations. The flow of combat is built around weaving these spells together. You begin by placing the Sigil Power to ground yourself in the fight, then apply the Despair to strip enemy cast resistance and open them to your damage. You'll trigger the Living Bomb to build infusions, and then release the Fireball to consume them. All of this will create a wave of projectiles that ricochet across the map. The Chaos Bolts serve as a filler, by keeping your damage rolling when you cycle your infusion generation. It feels like a rotation of build up and release, and once you master the timing loop, it becomes the second nature. Then next, our passive tree will combine 3 principles, so scale chaos infused damage, turn the life into your resource, and amplify the spellcasting utility. We start by getting nodes that boost spell damage, ignite scaling, and the chaos multipliers. With the Black Flame Covenant active, all of your fire damage will become chaos, so every chaos node will become relevant. The damage over time multipliers, ignite nodes, and the burning damage clusters will all become key parts of your scaling. This dual interaction between the fire mechanics and the chaos mechanics is what exactly allows the Fireball to reach its full potential. Then the life investment is the second major priority. Because you are a Blood Mage, so your life pool is both casting resource and a survival buffer. The nodes that increase the flat life, percentage life, and regeneration will become more valuable than almost anything else. Notables like the Sangumancy and the Whispers of the Flesh will feed directly into this style by rewarding you for casting and spawning life remnants that support your sustain. Recovery on the spell hit, life leech and regeneration nodes will keep the loop stable, so that you never feel like you're actually running out of life, despite constantly draining it. And then the final thing is utility. The fireballs infused secondary projectiles only matter if they travel far and persist long enough to hit multiple enemies, so projectile speed and duration scaling are very important. Then next we got gear, and for this build we want to emphasize life, chaos scaling and the spellcasting efficiency. Your weapon of choice is usually a staff, which in my case is the Chimming Staff, which can roll very high spell damage, critical strike chance and the cast speed. The staff setup also enables very strong weapon swaps, by letting you carry alternate setups for the curse application and infuse generation. Then defensively, the Rapid Globe is a strong option for the life-based sustain, while the Snake Pit provides unique projectile interactions. Then Defiance of Destiny shines in the late game to give you extra layer of survivability. Your armor pieces focus first and foremost on the maximum life and resistances, because you're constantly losing life, so stacking as much as possible is the only way to keep the engine running smoothly. Then after that, the Chaos Multipliers, spell damage and the cast speed are the offensive stats that you want to get. Jewelry is where you push your ceiling, so amulets and rings with the global critical strike multipliers, chaos damage and the cast speed are ideal. The Seed of Catalysm is a standout ring, while the rare amulets can push your damage even further. Your belt should focus on reinforced sustain, ideally rolling a very high life and the flask modifier. The flasks themselves are crucial for this build, as they act as an emergency recovery button when you get to low HP. Then for your helmet, gloves and boots, you should follow the same principles, so life and resistances first, and then whatever offensive bonus you can find. And now finally, let's take a look at how to actually play this build. Most of the time, we want to alternate between using the Living Bomb and the Fireball. Living Bomb will provide the infusion while the Fireball consumes it, and in 1 second the enemies will disappear in purple chaos. Then against tougher enemies, the rotation becomes a bit more involved. You drop the Sigil of Power to empower yourself, then apply the Despair to strip resistances, then trigger multiple infusions, and then detonate them with the Fireball. The Chaos Bolt will fill the gaps and ensure that you're never standing idle. Infusion generation is the core principle of where this build lies, so Living Bomb is your bread and butter, but the Solar Orb and the Snap will provide consistency when you need the extended loop. On weapon swap, you can carry a staff setup that allows you to quickly apply curses, by ensuring the nexts are always under the full weight of your debuffs. This DPS flow will almost become rhythmic. You drain life and restore life in the same moment, and fill the battlefield with a storm of corrupted fireballs. It's not the cleanest build visually. The purple fire, the explosions and the curses and the ground effects often will make the screen a chaotic mess. This is a setup that has been making waves across the community because of how effortlessly it can shred through the maps, crush bosses and scale into the endgame. If you are someone who enjoys a fast-paced range playstyle, with the ability to delete entire screens of enemies in seconds, then this is a setup that you definitely want to try out. The strength of this build comes from combining Lightning Arrow's massive screen clearing power, with the supporting mechanics like the Herald of the Thunder, Tornado Shot and the Lightning Rods for devastating single target damage. When you're mapping, it feels like you're constantly surrounded by the chain explosions of the lightning and a thunder, as the shocked enemies fall and trigger even more Herald procs. And when it comes to fighting bosses, you can just switch into a very controlled single target rotation that melts even the tankiest targets. What really makes this build stand out compared to the other setups in the 0.3 is its versatility. It clears like a zoom mapper, but also has the raw damage to take down pinnacle bosses. And on top of that, it's very forgiving to gear. And thanks to how Ranger works, you can solve mana problems with just one good stat roll or a single Javel. By the time that you're properly geared, mana stops being an issue entirely, leaving you freely to focus purely on deleting everything in front of you. So let's start with the core of our build, which is the active skill setup. We are playing as the Ranger class, and we ascend into the Deadeye. The Ascendancy pairs perfectly with the Lightning Arrow because of the projectile bonuses and incredible scaling we get from its nodes. Your main ability is of course the Lightning Arrow. This is your bread and butter skill for clearing packs, and when arrows hit, it unleashes beams of lightning that chain out nearby enemies, freezing and shocking them in the process. Combine this with the Pierce, and each arrow can proc multiple arcs, which means that you can wipe out dense packs in seconds. For mapping, you'll be basically spamming Lightning Arrow non-stop. Then comes in the lightning rod, which is your go-to ability for single target fights. You plant rods under bosses and detonate them with your lightning attacks to cause massive bursts of damage. The more arrows you can stack, the more devastating your rod explosion becomes. And we also want modifiers that add additional arrows, as they multiply your single target output. Then Tornado Shot serves as our supplemental single target tool. When you place a tornado on top of the boss and fire into it, then projectiles split into novas that stack more damage on your target. It's especially effective when paired with the lightning rod. Then the Voltaic Mark is your curse setup. By applying it to the bosses, you not only increase the chance to shock, but also boost the effectiveness of those shocks, making them take even more damage. This single gem supercharges your boss DPS. Then Herald of Thunder is where your clear speed really gets pushed over the edge. Every time you kill a shocked enemy, the lightning bolts rain down and chain through the packs by creating a cascade effect. When combined with the chain arcs of the lightning arrow, this results in near infinite screen-wide clearing. And lastly, we will have Barrage in our rotation. We use it to empower the lightning arrow or the raw damage. It synergizes well with the other skills, which gives you a powerful cooldown option for the extra burst. Also, one extra tip, keep the Stormcaller arrow on the weapon swap. This allows you to inflict a massive 20-second shock on the bosses, which gives you a huge damage boost, especially in the early stages, before your gear really comes active. Now let's talk about the passive tree, because this is what really transforms the build into a powerhouse. For attributes, you will want to grab enough intelligence and dexterity to meet your gem requirements, and then dump the rest into strength for the extra life. Early on, don't worry too much about perfectly balancing your attributes. You can respec the Hooded One or Doriani later on if the gear changes your requirements. Then the build follows a progression where you start with Evasion base 3, then transition into a hybrid setup, and eventually go into a full critical strike focus tree once your bow is strong enough. That's because critical strike scaling will heavily rely on your weapon having a really good base crit and damage. Without it, the investment is just not worth enough, but once you get the right bow, the damage will skyrocket. In the endgame, you'll eventually move into the Chaos Inoculation if you want to completely ignore the Chaos damage. This does require strong gear, but it makes your character much tankier against endgame content. The Ghost Dance will then serve as your main source of recovery. Overall, this setup emphasizes projectile damage, attack speed, evasion, and later critical strike multipliers. It's a natural fit for a bow ranger, and feels smooth when you progress through it. Then next up we have gear, which is always a huge part of any build, so let's break down what you exactly need. Your first priority is capping your elemental resistances at 75% across the board. Fire, cold, and lightning resistances will need to be maxed before you do anything else. For weapons, your goal is to get the highest DPS bow that you can, and in the best case scenario on a Gemini base, look for high elemental or physical damage and increased attack speed. If you find a bow with a critical strike chance, then it's even better, because that is what unlocks your crit scaling later. Then the quiver should have a flat damage, attack speed, or projectile modifiers. Projectile speed is also a great bonus, because it makes your lightning arrow feel much smoother. Then on rings and gloves should focus on the flat damage and resistances. Ideally, you want a flat lightning or the physical damage here to scale from your attacks. Your amulet should provide spirit, since you will need at least 30 if you want to run the Rockei Mountain or the companion with the K Stara. Then for the chest armor, prioritize the high evasion. Once you're pushing red maps, rarity becomes very valuable, so aim for at least 100% increased rarity if possible, but don't sacrifice damage or defenses just to hit that number. Then Jevels on the tree should provide generic damage bonuses, so things like the attack damage, elemental damage, movement speed, projectile damage, and even attack speed. One Jevel must have a Sapphire Jevel with a mana on kill. This completely fixes the mana issue during mapping. And finally, anoint the Serrated Edge on your amulet for a solid damage boost. The core principle of gearing is simple. Upgrade your bow first, then focus on defenses like evasion and energy shield, and finally fill in your resistances and damage stats with the accessories. And now finally, let's see how to actually play this build. For clearing maps, it's simple. Just fire lightning arrow into the packs. Herald of the Thunder will take care of the chaining explosions, and your arrows will arc lightning through everything in a sight. Then against tanky rares, you can drop the lightning arrow to speed up things. For bosses, your rotation is little more involved. Precast about 20 lightning rods where the boss is going to spawn. If possible, also drop a frost bomb for the extra debuff. When the boss spawns, immediately apply the Voltaic Mark, then weapon swap to cast the ball lightning for a huge shock uptime. Then fire tornado shot directly on the boss, and then use the brush to empower your arrows. Once that's set up, you just spam lightning arrow and watch the health bar disappear. This is a Chaos Lich build that focuses on combining Essence Chain and Contagion together to create a devastating spread of damage over time while summoning Dark Effigy for totems to annihilate bosses and tough rares. Essence Chain serves as your primary single target tool, dealing high chaos dot damage that scales with every investment, while Contagion will spread that damage across the entire packs, chaining from monster to monster until the screen is wiped clean. The Dark Effigy amplifies single target damage by multiplying projectiles based on the number of active dots, which makes it incredibly strong for the boss encounters. What makes the build exceptional is how well-rounded it is. Offensively, it delivers one of the best sustained chaos dots in the game, without relying on complicated rotations, and then defensively, the Lich Ascendancy provides a massive energy shield pull, while the Soulless form converts life regeneration into the mana regeneration, giving your build almost unshakable sustain. The Eternal Life locks your health in a place with the energy shield, while mitigating damage and creating a near constant safety buffer. Then also we get additional tools like the Ravenous form for the poison effects and the Desecrated Focus mod for the extra spell totems enhanced by the Dark Effigy's power, while thoughtful stat allocations and defensive layers will ensure that this build is safe, efficient and highly scalable. So in short, this Chaos Witch build will clear maps very fast, melt bosses and survive in the fights that would destroy other Chaos builds. So let's take a look at our skill gems, which is the heart of this build. Essence Chain is the core of this setup by providing sustained chaos damage that scales over time. Paired with the Contagion, it creates the signature screen-wide chain reaction by turning just 2 casts into a wave of destruction that spreads automatically across the enemy packs. While clearing speed may be slower than some projectile-heavy setups, the payoff is enormous, as enemies will slowly melt in sequence. Then for tougher targets, the Dark Effigy totem takes the spotlight. These totems will scale the number of damage over time effects on a target, meaning that stacking Essence Chain, Contagion, Despair and the Poison makes the Effigy volleys do super high DPS to the bosses. The main limitation, however, is their fragility, so careful placement behind one line of sight or near terrain is essential to keep them firing. Then our support gem setup will drive the build's efficiency. In 6 links, priority goes to the Dark Effigy first, then the Essence Chain and finally Contagion. Contagion will benefit greatly from quality for wider spread, and other gems like the Spear, Temporal Chains and the Essence Chains also will scale well with the quality. The new Ravenous Swarm gem is especially OP, allowing Dark Effigy to apply poison without the extra support, though it requires additional spirit from the gear. The Essence Chain support can be adjusted for the tougher bosses, or swapping Chain and Intense Agony for the Drain element and Deliberation that boosts single target output. In the early game, I recommend to keep Contagion at a very low level, that will help you to manage mana, but once a 6th link with the Arcane Surge is ready, then level it until it costs you over a third of your total mana for the optimal uptime. Then our utility gems will add flexibility, so by using our second weapon and getting the Sigil of Power, it will boost the boss damage significantly, especially when Effigy is active. And then finally, the Bone Storm used with the Visage of Aya will let you intentionally drop to low life after death to activate the passive bonuses. Then next we have our passive tree, and for this character we have one goal: to amplify our chaos damage over time, while building a hybrid defense that combines energy shield with a life sustain. On the damage side, we'll take clusters that give us chaos stat multipliers, increased chaos damage and the skill duration. These nodes are the backbone of the Essence Chain scaling. The extra duration doesn't just make Essence Chain last longer, it also keeps Contagion chains alive, letting them ripple farther into a pack before expiring. Then the cast speed nodes are another quiet powerhouse. Even though they don't directly boost your dots, they make the combo smoother and also raise Dark Effigy's projectile output, so our defensive structure is equally important. You'll be investing heavily into the energy shield, building up a massive pool that acts as your first line of defense. At the same time, you want to take enough life and regeneration nodes to fuel the Soulless form mechanic, which converts life into your mana regeneration. This is exactly what keeps your spell sustainable even in the longer fights. Eternal Life will ensure that your life value is effectively locked in a place, which is what turns normally dangerous bypass mechanics into a form of mitigation instead. Then also you can see that I've invested into the curse effectiveness and efficiency. Despair is a core part of this build's single target output, and strengthening its debuffs will play a huge role. Likewise, taking mana efficiency clusters will prevent from running into awkward downtime in a fight, where you'd otherwise be waiting to regenerate before casting again. The next up, gearing priorities are straightforward but important. The Azarus Disdain is the standout unique for this build. It synergizes beautifully with the Lich Ascendancy, and is so impactful that you'll want to pick up a corrupted version with 2 sockets as soon as possible. Then from a defensive standpoint, the first step is capping resistances, so including chaos resistance at around 60% or higher. After that, securing an amulet with the 30 spirit is key, so you can fit all of your reservation skills. Energy shield chest pieces are your next big upgrade. The Vape Shaper works fine for the budget, but eventually you'll want either way a Vile Robe for the raw energy shield, or a Flowing Raiment if you need a mana regen to balance things out. For the offense, the gem level scaling is king, so prioritize plus chaos spell levels on your wand, then also plus to all spells on your amulet, and plus to spells on your focus. And then after the gem levels, the cast speed or the chaos damage also become important. Wands that roll again extra lightning as chaos are particularly fun, since they enable shocks through the effigy projectiles. Mana regeneration becomes crucial as the gem levels will rise. Rings are the ideal slots for this, and the dream setup is to pair it with the life, cast speed, and the chaos damage, and even strong suffixes like resistances, attributes, or even mana regen. Then for anointing, Reverberation is an excellent and affordable choice to boost the contagion spread radius. Later, if you want more focus on single target or the defenses, the nodes like the Spiral into Insanity or the Calibration are worth considering. And now finally, let's see how do you actually play this build. When you're clearing maps, your flow is simple. Cast the Essence Chain, immediately follow it with the Contagion, and then watch the waves of chaos spread. In packs with weaker enemies, you may find yourself casting Contagion first, so that they don't die before the link is established. But in most cases, the Essence Chain into the Contagion will work best. Once the chains start, you'll often see entire screens wipe out with no further effect. Then for bosses and tough rares, you'll want to slow down and set up, so place first your Dark Effigy Totem when they won't instantly die. Then drop your Sigil of Power and curse the ground with Despair. By the time all of these are stacked up, your effigy projectiles will be tearing through the chunks out of the tankiest targets. It will feel slower compared to the big hit builds, but the DPS uptime is much higher, so you can dodge, reposition, or kite while the dots will do their work. Also, one of the most unique mechanics here is the intentional low life setup. Eternal Life lets you drop your health to 35% or even less, and keep it there so as long as your energy shield stays up. So overall, if you're looking for the most powerful and the highest DPS Chaos Lich build, then here it is.